Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Create. Today we're going to be covering the mechanical drill and how you can use it to make you several different types of infinite resources, all free. As you can see, I have a little bit of a setup going on here. It's not quite as pretty as my little factory going on over there, but it is still going to be very functional nonetheless. I've got a few different examples of how this can go, but basically, the mechanical drill, my friends. It is a fabulous invention. It is very easy access. You just need some iron and some kind of rotational force in most cases. And then you can get yourself all sorts of good stuff. But you do have to have some kind of setup for it. So, to start off with a little demonstration, by placing one of these down, it will place like so. You know, very simple. But if you have some kind of rotational force, in this case I have a creative motor, creative from create motor running this, but if you have some kind of like water wheel or something like that going on, it works the same way. So you can, of course, speed it up with multiple different levels of gears. Let's get that thing zooming. There you go, just to give an example of how fast you can get it going there. But it will become a block breaker. So if I place a block in front of it, it will break it. Of course, the faster you have it going, the faster it will break said block. Now that's not the only thing. If I am in survival mode and I walk into one of these, it also will injure entities. Therefore, it can be used as a, well, mob destroyer of sorts, or for your own mob farms as you would so like. Now, if you look up the mechanical drill and how it's used, if you just press U on here, it's not going to tell you how you can use it to make infinite resources. One, of course, is going to be in a mob farm type environment, and that's probably going to be the simpler way. So let's actually start with that. If I jump over here, you can see that I currently have some rotational force hooked up to a bunch of encased fans that are going to blow any kind of entities into a bunch of spinning drills. Which I currently have running with some encased belts up above just so that I can get 3 of them in a row. I mean, it all depends on how you want to have it. If you are using water to push mobs into it, keep in mind that obviously Endermen are going to escape. You might also have some issue with some spiders or something like that, depending upon your farm, but it's all relative. So let's drop in some volunteers here, and you can see that they are automatically pushed into these, and then they die, and the drops come out. Now, the difference is, with this kind of mob farm, you're not going to get XP. There's no XP to be had in this. It doesn't generate any, but it will start gathering a few things. I had some chickens get in there earlier. Don't worry about that. But that's the basics of the first part, mob farms. So this is just a simple example of one. Now, if you go with a different type of farm, we can therefore gain several other resources. Specifically, we can get, obviously, cobblestone. As you can see here, I currently have a very vanilla-looking farm set up with lava and some water and some hoppers going into a crate. You can see it is currently storing all sorts of cobblestone. You can, of course, speed this up. As I said before, let's speed it up to maximum speed, so as soon as it is made, it breaks it. The only difference is that you might start getting a little bit of a frame rate lag. So I do recommend you just keep it at a simpler level, like 32 or 64, something like that is the speed that I'm using. Now, obviously, a motor is relative, but if you look at the speed that this is rotating, just a nice gentle speed should probably do just fine. It'll get you infinite amounts of cobblestone, which then you can grind up. And by grinding them up, you can turn them into gravel, like so. Now, here's the other thing. You can actually use the gravel in a crushing wheel again and get sand and clay and flint as possible outputs. And then, of course, you can use them again and again. And you can use this clay to then be smelted into bricks, which then can be used to make, well, you can also use it to make terracotta as well, you know, craft it and cook it and stuff. And then you can have that turned into red sand, dropping terracotta in the top, and then you can use that to get different things as well. Now here's the thing. You can see we've got gold nuggets, a chance from red sand. There's also a chance of getting iron from gravel. if you look here, you just need to wash gravel in front of a fan, and you have a chance of getting iron nuggets. And that's what I have set up over here. Now, this is way more extensive than it needs to be, or at least the top half. The bottom part is probably about on par. This is probably your most ideal setup. You don't have a lot of moving items, you just have something constantly breaking cobble over and over again. You can actually stack this on top of itself and go with this. It would be very simple. But instead, I wanted to go a little bit crazy and show you some of the different options you can do with a mechanical drill. In this case, I hooked it up to some of these here. Let me actually turn this on so that it stops. Some translation chassis that are, as before, hooked up with redstone contacts and stuff. If you want to know how all these work, I recommend you check out my previous video on the bread making factory over here, because I pretty much go over that in extensive detail. But it's the same idea. The cobblestone gets made down here. This gets pushed through with the translation chassis on a sticky mechanical piston hooked up to a gear shift for back and forth movement. And it will just constantly keep breaking several blocks of cobble. And you notice that none of them are spinning. They are all stationary. So this is one way of doing it. But keep in mind that because you're popping blocks off in this manner, as I picked up a few cobblestone pieces that were on the ground down here, there is some tend for some slippage. But it is pretty reliable and can be used as well as this method, depending upon how you want it to go. Now this, of course, I have it going really slowly. You can speed it up and put them all stacked just like this if you want. But keep in mind, if you're on a server, try to be respective of your friends so that they can play as well without getting huge amounts of lag. Now the idea here is that the cobblestone comes down into these crushing wheels. They then get turned into gravel, right? The gravel then goes in front of some fans that are blowing through water, and then they get turned into flint, as well as iron nuggets. If you watch long enough, there's a possibility we may end up getting some. If you have this running too fast, there we go, got some iron nuggets right there. If this gets too full on the belt, they will actually stop and wait for the other items to get through this process. I could speed it up if I so desired, but I figure that this is just perfectly fine in this case. And I have different things being sorted. I have flint that I have no further need of going into my trash bin. And on this side, I currently have the nuggets going into a crate, which, as you can see, starts adding up over time, especially if the area is loaded. Then, of course, I've got gravel. Not that I'm going to have gravel actually get through here, unless I switch this up. Now, in this case, this is going to cut off the water flow and just let the gravel that's existing come down to the end here. And then I can store that in another crate or chest, or however you want to do, or have that pumped back up into it and have it reground up again into sand and so on, therefore allowing you to get massive amounts of secondary items like red sand from terracotta that you've made from clay that you got by crushing gravel a second time into the grinding wheels, so or the crushing wheels. It's quite interesting, and that will allow you to get gold, as well as, you know, you've got your already getting some iron in this case. You could set up a second one that does this, or you can have a second output. You don't even, if you don't have a filter on this and you have it actually feeding into two different directions, then you could easily have it, it'll end up splitting them into two different directions, and therefore you could just have the results from this, one going into making gold, one going into making iron and perhaps flint if you really need it that badly. But there are other ways that you can use this stuff as well. And if you look at soul sand, which is not actually craftable in Create, you would have to harvest it. But if you are tossing it in front of a blown fan, or a fan blowing water, you'll of course get a chance of nether quartz and a chance of gold in that case too. So that is another way that you can get a whole bunch of nether quartz, which is actually pretty easy to get in this mod in general. Because if you look, nether quartz, let's see if I can actually look that up here. The recipe for that, you can have crushed granite, of course nether quartz, or prismarine crystals, as well as diorite, will all yield a chance of getting you some of the nether quartz. So you don't have to go ripping up the entire nether just to do that, as well as, of course, as I showed you before, the bulk washing there of just getting some of the ores out of it and the bulk smelting. Now, that's pretty much it. There isn't too much to it. It is a bit of a challenge to try and set it up, but honestly, it's not too bad. And this is way over-engineered. Seriously, if you're going to do it, I recommend you just go with the very simple solution of setting up a stationary drill instead of having it go back and forth. And if you try and have all of your, if you decide to go for something like this, and you decide to have a bunch of your mechanical drills attached to sticky mechanical pistons, and you think, well, I don't need the translation chassis in there. Yes, you do, because honestly, if you don't have that, there's nothing regulating all of them being pushed at the same time, and therefore they'll start going out of sequence. The redstone won't line up properly, and it will actually not go all the way forward anymore and stop and go back again before it even breaks the stone anymore. So keep that in mind. You will need to use some kind of translation chassis if you want to move a whole series of things all in one fluid push. Otherwise, the timing will be, well, improper, incorrect, whatever. But I do recommend you instead take this setup, you put it up here, and then you just have it going into a grinding wheel. Gets washed, free iron for days. So, that's pretty much it for this. I hope you guys enjoyed another, and probably my last one for Create. There's still plenty more in this mod, and it's being updated and changed on a daily basis. So if you guys have been enjoying this series, please be sure to give a like, comment, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank the mod maker so that, you know, we can continue getting really good quality mods like this on our modded Minecraft. Until next time, folks, I'll see ya.